Ever wonder where half-remembered dreams wander off to? The quiet ones, the strange ones, the ones that feel like warm fog. Welcome to Dreamy Nonsense, your home for bedtime stories that make no sense at all and feel perfect anyway. I hope this gentle adventure helps your mind settle, your heart unwind, and your body drift softly towards sleep. There was once a very small cloud who lived in a very large sky. The sky itself stretched in every direction like a soft, pale blanket, and the cloud lived there quite happily without ever thinking too much about anything at all. It drifted and it floated, and sometimes it spun slowly in place, just to feel the gentle tug of the wind comb through its wisps. If you had seen the cloud from far below, you might not have noticed anything special about it. It was neither the biggest nor the fluffiest, neither the brightest nor the darkest. It wasn't shaped like a dragon or a ship or a rabbit or a face. It was simply a small, roundish, soft around the edges sort of cloud, the kind that looks a little like a thought that hasn't finished arriving. The cloud had a name once. It was sure of that. It just couldn't remember what the name had been or when exactly it had stopped remembering it. The memory had slipped away the way a single droplet slips from the edge of a leaf after a long, gentle rain, quietly, without any real fuss, leaving only a faint, cool feeling behind. Sometimes the cloud tried to remember. Was the name something short and puffy like Pooh? Was it something long and airy like Ciro something something? Or perhaps it had never really been important at all. The more the cloud tried to remember, the softer the memory became, until it felt like trying to hold a sunbeam, warm and bright for a moment, then gone, leaving only a pleasant afterglow. So the cloud would stop trying and simply float. Floating was easy, remembering was hard, and names were optional. On the particular day this story begins, though day is a gentle word here because the light was very soft and the time of day felt uncertain, the sky was quietly busy. Other clouds drifted across the vastness, tall, towering ones that cast large shadows on the ground below, tiny, wispy ones that looked like scribbles made by a sleepy hand, long, stretched ones that resembled feathers or forgotten trails of smoke. The small cloud watched them all with mild curiosity. It watched a long feather cloud sweep by and wondered what it might feel like to be long and elegant instead of small and round. It watched a big, billowing cloud puff itself up dramatically and then slowly collapse into a gentle, softer shape, and it wondered how it would feel to be so grand and then so quiet. Mostly, though, it simply floated where the wind carried it, not really needing to go anywhere in particular. From somewhere far away, a breeze decided to change its mind. Winds and breezes do that sometimes. One moment they are perfectly content to flow in a certain direction, and the next they think, what if I went over there instead? And so they go, and everything they carry along with them goes as well. The small cloud felt the change as a kind of curious invitation, a gentle hand at its side, nudging. The breeze curled around the edges of the cloud, tugging at its wisps. "Come this way," the breeze seemed to say, though it didn't use words. Breezes rarely do. They speak instead in pressure and swirl, in soft pushes and subtle pulls. The cloud, being light and willing and not busy with anything at all, agreed. It didn't say, "Yes, I will come," because clouds don't really talk. It simply allowed itself to be moved. Slowly at first, then a little faster, the cloud began to drift out of the familiar part of the sky. It floated past the cluster of clouds it usually recognized, the tall, rumbling one that liked to hold thunder in its belly, the long, sleepy one that always seemed to be stretching, the small, squiggly one that never quite decided what shape it wanted to be. "Where are you going?" the squiggly one might have asked if it had been paying attention. But it was busy turning itself into 3 different shapes at once and forgot to wonder. The small cloud drifted on. Beneath it, the land changed slowly. At first, it was the usual patchwork of fields and paths and tiny houses, with rivers that curled like loose ribbons and roads that traced thoughtful lines from one place to another. But as the cloud went farther, the shapes blurred and the land seemed less certain of what it wanted to be. From this height, everything looked gentle and distant and a little unreal, like a painting someone had left out in the rain until it faded and softened at the edges. The cloud wasn't worried. Clouds rarely are. It was simply curious in a very slow, very relaxed way. It noticed that the sky around it was growing quieter. The familiar clusters of clouds were farther and farther behind, and the space ahead felt wide and open and oddly empty. It tried once to remember its name, as if a name might help it feel anchored in this bigger, emptier sky. But the name was still nowhere to be found, and thinking about it made the cloud feel slightly more diffuse, as if thinking too hard let a bit of itself drift away. So it stopped thinking and returned to floating. Floating was always the safest thing to do. Time passed in the way time always passes in the sky, slowly, smoothly, almost imperceptibly. The light shifted from soft gold to soft blue to soft lavender, never quite committing to a bright midday or a dark night. It felt as if the sky itself were caught in a gentle yawn, stretching between day and night and not in any particular hurry to pick one. The small cloud drifted further. Every so often, a bird flew past, flapping its wings with a kind of determination clouds never needed. One bird, tired from its long flight, circled the cloud lazily for a moment, as if considering whether it might rest there. Then, remembering that clouds are not solid, and that resting on one might be more like gentle falling than resting at all, it moved on. The cloud watched it go. It wondered briefly what it might be like to have wings. Then it realized that wings always had to keep moving, and that sounded like a lot of effort. Floating, the cloud decided again, was better. Then, quite suddenly, and also very gently, the sky below the cloud shifted. It had been a long, distant smear of land and color, but now a break appeared, like a sigh in the earth itself. The cloud drifted over the edge of a vast, low valley, filled not with trees or water or houses, but with something else entirely. From above, it looked almost like someone had spilled a collection of tiny shining dots onto a soft green cloth. As the cloud came closer, the dots resolved into shapes. Little round rims, tiny handles, small circles clustered together like quiet thoughts. Teacups. The valley below was full of teacups. They were arranged in no pattern at all, scattered gently as if they had just grown there like flowers, each one resting on a small patch of moss or grass, each one tilted at the slightest angle. Some of them held nothing. Others held the faintest traces of tea, barely a color, just a memory of warmth. Others had little curls of steam rising from them, though no one seemed to be pouring anything. The cloud drifted lower, drawn by curiosity and the soft glimmer of light on porcelain. As it came closer, it realized something else. The teacups were whispering. The sound rose up from the valley like a very quiet breeze that had swallowed 1,000 tiny words. It wasn't loud, it wasn't urgent. It was simply there, a constant, gentle murmur, like the sound of pages turning in a library where no one spoke above a hushed breath. The cloud listened. "Almost full, but not quite full," murmured one teacup. "A little more sugar, or perhaps a little less," sighed another. "Do you remember the spoon?" asked a third, no one in particular. The words floated up in fragments. None of them formed a complete. The small cloud did not mean to stay in the valley very long. But then again, it also had never meant to arrive there in the first place. Clouds, in general, are not planners. They do not wake up in the morning, because they do not wake up, and say, "Today I will drift to a valley of softly murmuring porcelain and listen to half-remembered conversations about spoons." They simply go where the wind thinks is interesting. And so the small cloud remained, suspended lazily over the mossy, porcelain-dotted hollow, feeling as if it had wandered into a dream that no one had quite finished writing. Down below, the whispering continued, flowing in gentle waves. In one part of the valley, the sound was like a stream running over tiny stones, delicate, quick, full of small, tumbling words. In another part, it was slower and deeper, like a kettle that never quite reaches a full boil, always humming just beneath, always about to, but never needing to. The cloud drifted slightly to the right, then to the left, the way a thought drifts between "I should remember that" and "I suppose it doesn't matter." From below, a teacup cleared its throat. Teacups, strictly speaking, do not have throats. But if they did, this is what the sound would have been like. A tiny clink, a soft tap of ceramic on ceramic, a small shift on its patch of moss, as if it were settling itself in before saying something important that turned out not to be important at all. "Ahem," it murmured, though the sound was really just the gentle tap of its rim against a saucer that wasn't there. "Today," the teacup announced to no one and everyone, "I am remembering the steam." Several nearby cups quieted themselves just a little, as if turning their attention that way. The whispers did not stop, they simply leaned. "The steam," the teacup repeated, more dreamily. "It rose from me once, long ago, or perhaps recently, or perhaps tomorrow. It rose slowly, in curling lines. It knew exactly where it was going." "Where was it going?" asked a smaller cup, its voice a delicate chime. "Up," said the first teacup very confidently. "Definitely up." "That sounds exhausting," muttered another cup. always having to go somewhere? The small cloud listened, fascinated. Steam was a cousin of clouds in a way, shifted and hurried and hot, but still made of the same small pieces. It wondered if perhaps it had once been steam itself, long ago, rising from some forgotten cup in some forgotten kitchen. Perhaps it had known where it was going then. It tried to remember. Nothing came. Only the familiar, soft blur at the edges of its thoughts. That was all right. Remembering took effort. Listening did not. The cloud drifted lower still, until a few of its faintest wisps brushed the tops of the tallest stacks. The teacups shivered pleasantly, like someone being wrapped in an extra blanket. "Oh," sighed one, "a passing fluff." "How luxurious," agreed another. "We hardly ever get sky touch up here." A teacup with a tiny crack down its side spoke in a voice that sounded like the echo of a spoon tapping against its rim. "Would you like to hear the story of the spoon?" it asked the cloud. The cloud was not sure if it liked stories or not, but it enjoyed the sound of them. The sound of a story being told was a bit like watching the sky change color. It moved slowly, and you didn't need to understand it to feel calm. So the cloud agreed in its own wordless way. The cracked teacup settled more firmly into its bed of moss, which was so used to the shape of the cup that it cradled it like a memory. "The spoon," the teacup began, "was very small, smaller than me. That alone should tell you how small it was." The neighboring teacup gasped politely. It had a little bend at the end of its handle, not because it was broken, no, because it wanted to see the world from a slightly different angle. Everything tasted more interesting that way, or so it claimed. "That seems reasonable," chipped a teacup painted with faded roses. "I once leaned 2 degrees to the left for an entire afternoon. It changed everything and nothing at all." "The spoon," said the cracked cup, "was always dipping into things. Sugar, tea, sometimes jam, once an entire bowl of something that no one could quite identify, but we all agreed it was sweet. And whenever it dipped, it came out with something new clinging to it, which it took very seriously. Each grain of sugar, each droplet of tea, each invisible flavor was to the spoon a responsibility." "Who washed the spoon?" someone whispered, horrified and delighted. "No one important," the cracked cup replied vaguely. "Hands, water, a cloth sometimes, but the washing was only a pause between adventures. What mattered was the dipping, the discovering, the stirring." Several cups sighed, as if reminiscing about being stirred. "Stirring," murmured one old cup with a chipped base. "That's the closest I've ever come to dancing." The cloud tried to imagine dancing. It thought of swirling around another cloud in slow circles, being pushed and pulled by the wind in a shared pattern. It decided that if clouds danced, it would feel like that, gentle, circular, without any need to step in the right place, because there were no steps at all. "And then," continued the cracked cup, "the spoon did not come back. It had dipped into something, what I cannot recall, and when it left the table, it simply kept going. It was carried somewhere else. Another room, another house, another world, perhaps. I was empty and sticky and slightly offended. But then, the sun set and the steam faded, and I realized. The cup paused for a moment, letting her pause sit like a small cube of sugar dissolving slowly at the bottom of a cup. I realized that I was still here. All the cups were very quiet. Even the valley air seemed to lean in. "That's the end," the cracked cup finished. "That's it?" whispered the blue cup. "Yes," said the cracked cup contentedly. "I was still here. That was the important part." The cloud considered this. The spoon had gone. The cup had stayed. The story had no twist, no grand ending, no dramatic turn. It simply stopped where it was most peaceful, at the point of stillness. The cloud liked it very much. It drifted sideways, following the gentle curve of the valley. Each shift in its position revealed a slightly different chorus of murmurs rising from below. It discovered, with slow delight, that the valley was like a patchwork of nonsensical conversations, each square sewn together by the common thread of "we are here, and that is enough." In one corner of the valley, the teacups were all very particular about time. 3 minutes, that is the perfect steeping time. Not 2, not 4, 3. 2.5, argued another. "You must leave room for possibility." "I'm never steep at all," said a third. "I simply imagine it, and that is usually sufficient." In another corner, the cups were very concerned with patterns. "Polka dots," declared a spotted cup. "Polka dots are cheerful and—"
The cloud drifted away from the valley, rising slowly until the porcelain whispers faded into the soft distance, becoming nothing more than the memory of a lullaby that had already done its job. The sky felt wider here, but also emptier, as if waiting for the cloud to fill it with whatever shape it chose. Not that the cloud chose shapes. Shapes simply happened to it. A gentle bend, a slight bulge, a long stretch, then a return to roundness. Form without intention, movement without direction, being without needing to know why. As it drifted forward, the horizon shimmered like a thought half-formed. Colors shifted in ways the cloud couldn't name. A blue that felt like a sigh, a lavender that tasted faintly of something sweet, a soft gold that sounded like someone remembering a dream out loud. And then from these colors, a path appeared. It did not rise from the ground. It did not fall from the sky. It simply revealed itself, as if it had always been there, patiently waiting for someone aimless enough to notice it. The path was thin and pale, glowing gently like morning light captured in a strand of silk. It wound across the sky, looping once, twice, 3 times, then doubling back on itself in a careful spiral, as if tying an invisible bow. The cloud approached it with the same curiosity it applied to everything, slow, soft, unhurried. At the edge of the path stood a sign. At least it looked like a sign. It hung suspended in midair, supported by nothing but charm and confidence. The words on it shifted, shimmering gently, as if unsure which message would be most helpful. The cloud drifted close enough to read. For a moment, the letters rearranged themselves into something resembling a language. This way to the path that returns to where it already is. The cloud was not confused. Confusion would require wanting things to make sense. Instead, the cloud thought, "Yes, that seems reasonable." Wind curled around it, encouragingly. The cloud brushed against the first loop of the path. A soft bell-like tone rang out, the kind of sound a thin piece of glass might make if touched by moonlight. Not loud, not startling, just a quiet acknowledgement that something had begun. The cloud followed the glowing silk path forward. It wound gently, predictably. Left, then right, then left again, like breathing. There was no rush, no destination, just the motion of drifting along a path that felt almost like a memory. After a few minutes, although minutes here were more of a suggestion than a measurement, the cloud realized something. It had passed this point before. The curve ahead was familiar in the way a dream can be familiar even if you've never had it twice. The little shimmer at the edge of the path, the way the glow dipped slightly before rising, all of it was known. The path had looped. The cloud was now where it had already been, which meant it was also where it already was, which meant it was also where it was going. The cloud found this deeply comforting. Below the looping ribbon of light, new details appeared. Soft hills painted in blurred watercolor strokes, trees that swayed even though no wind touched them, a river that moved only when not being watched. On one of the hills, a single pebble rolled up and down in a slow arc, as if trying to remember whether gravity applied here or not. The cloud drifted around the loop again. This time, the sign greeted it cheerfully. "Welcome back," and also, "Welcome forward." The letters shimmered like the surface of tea when someone lightly blows on it. The cloud would have smiled if clouds smiled. On its third loop, the cloud noticed a tiny creature sitting on the edge of the path. It was small, smaller than a teacup even, shaped like a puff of dust with two little eyes that blinked very slowly, as if each blink required a meeting and signed approval. The creature waved a speck-sized hand. "Oh, good," it said, in a voice that sounded like the rustle of a soft blanket. Someone else who enjoys going nowhere in particular. The cloud drifted closer. "I've been sitting here," the little dusty creature continued, "trying to decide if this path is taking me somewhere or bringing me back, or both. I've decided the answer is yes." It nodded in a satisfied way. The cloud found this logic flawless. "I come here all the time," the creature went on, "especially when I want to think, or when I want to unthink. Mostly the second one. This is a very good place for unthinking." "Unthinking," the cloud repeated internally, tasting the idea. Yes, that seems like exactly the sort of thing a wandering cloud might enjoy. The dusty creature hopped onto the glowing path and shuffled forward, moving with the slow, deliberate pace of someone trying not to disturb the air. "I like the loops," it confided. "The third one is my favorite, or the seventh. But the third is most like the seventh, and the seventh is most like the third, so really they are the same loop, only at different times, except time doesn't quite matter here. Isn't that lovely?" The cloud drifted beside it, circling one of the larger loops as if tracing the rim of an invisible cup. As they drifted, the path shifted subtly. Colors deepened, edges softened, the glow warmed. Nothing dramatic changed, but everything felt slightly more settled, as though the path had recognized that something content was walking it. Below, the hills hummed faintly. The trees whispered nonsense between their leaves. The river moved in a lazy figure-8 pattern. "This," the dusty creature said, "is the looping part. It's the best part. The moment where you realize that repetition isn't returning, it's resting. Everything returns when it needs to. Everything loops when it wants to be gentle with itself." The cloud absorbed this idea in the same way it absorbed sunlight, quietly, without trying. Another loop, another familiar curve, another comforting repetition. The path shone brighter for a moment, then dimmed in a soft sigh as if pleased. After what might have been 5 loops, or 50, or none at all, numbers were merely ornamental here. The dusty creature settled down and folded itself into a little pile. The cloud drifted along the looping ribbon of light until the curves began to smooth out, stretching into long, gentle arcs that felt less like returns and more like invitations. The sky here deepened into colors that didn't seem entirely committed to choosing between day and dusk. Everything shimmered with the kind of warmth that isn't quite sunlight and the kind of coolness that isn't quite shadow. And then, softly at first, the scent appeared. Not the scent of rain or steam or morning mist, those the cloud knew well enough. This was the scent of soft petals warmed by something quiet and kind. A scent like memories of gardens that might not have existed, but were lovely to imagine anyway. The cloud drifted toward it naturally, the way a thought drifts toward comfort. Below, the looping path widened until it became a soft, curved bridge of light. Beneath that bridge was a place the cloud had never seen, a small valley bursting with gentle colors. Not bright colors, Not the loud reds and yellows of a daytime field, but muted pastels that glowed from within, like dreams dressed in soft silk. This was Petaltown. It wasn't a town in the usual sense. There were no houses, no roads, no chimneys, no doors. Instead, there were huge blossoms, flowers tall as trees and soft as pillows. Their petals were layered in gentle folds, forming natural alcoves and rooms. Some flowers curved open like bowls, cradling tiny pools of glowing nectar. Others bent inward like curtains, forming quiet, shaded nooks. Each blossom felt like its own little world. As the cloud floated closer, it realized something else. The flowers whispered. Not as the teacups whispered. Those porcelain murmurs were small and private, meant to be held close. Petaltown's whispers were different. They were airy, drifting, melodic. Each petal that brushed another created a sound like a syllable of a language almost forgotten. And nestled at the center of one particularly large blossom, surrounded by shifting pink and lavender petals, sat a scribe with a quill. A scribe. The scribe was tiny, smaller than the cracked teacup from the valley, larger than the dusty creature from the loop path. It was shaped in soft, round lines, its body like a puff of dandelion fluff, wearing a robe of fallen petals. Its quill was made from the stem of a flower that had politely volunteered to lose a single leaf. At the end of the quill, instead of ink, was a glowing drop of nectar that never seemed to run out. The scribe wrote slowly, very, very slowly, on a sheet of petal paper that never tore, never crumpled, and occasionally fluttered with a yawn. The cloud hovered above, captivated. The scribe looked up, its small eyes blinking in a sleepily patient way. Oh, a cloud visitor. How unusual, and yet not unusual at all. Everything arrives here eventually, if it doesn't mind drifting. The cloud drifted closer. I am the scribe, the one who writes the stories of things that almost happened, or might happen later, or perhaps already happened but forgot. It tapped the quill on the glowing petal page. This, it said, is my latest. I have been writing it for, oh dear, I don't know how long. Every time I near the end, another beginning grows. Beginnings are very fond of appearing here. Endings get shy. It gently turned the page, if turning was the right word. The petal didn't flip the way a human book page would. It simply rotated itself, presenting a fresh, blank surface with an airy, contented sigh. "Would you like me to read to you?" the scribe asked. The cloud, delighted but unable to speak, softened in a way that conveyed yes. The scribe cleared his throat, though the sound was more like a delicate petal brushing against the wind. In the beginning, it read in a slow lullaby cadence, there was a small cloud who drifted too far. The cloud recognized the story immediately. It recognized the tone, the pace, the shape of the words. Even if the scribe paused often, or backtracked, or began a sentence twice before remembering it had already said the first half. "You're writing about me," the cloud thought, though no word formed. The scribe nodded, as if hearing the unspoken question. "Oh yes, I write about everything that wanders through Petaltown.
Stories come here when they're soft and tired and want someone gentle to hold them for a while." It dipped its quill in the nectar and continued writing. "Sometimes," the scribe explained, "stories don't want to end. They prefer to unfurl slowly, like a bloom that isn't sure if it wants to be fully open yet." The cloud drifted around the blossom's perimeter, watching as petals swayed gently with each whispered syllable. "What do you do with the stories when they're finished?" the cloud wondered. The scribe smiled, very faint and very sleepy. "Oh, I don't finish them. That would be rude. Stories like to rest here. They don't come for completion. They come to be held." The blossom around them brightened slightly, its petals exhaling a soft glow. "But," the scribe continued, "stories sometimes wander off again. They find someone else to whisper to, a traveler, a breeze, or perhaps a cloud." The cloud felt, if clouds feel, something warm and light forming within. "Would you like to add to your story?" the scribe delicately asked. The cloud froze, or the cloud equivalent of freezing. Add? To its own story? A story it didn't even remember beginning? Seeing the hesitation, the scribe nodded understandingly. "It's all right. Stories can be added to without knowing what comes next or before. You can add a pause, a drift, a sigh. Those are lovely additions." The cloud thought for a while. Then, without meaning to, it let one of its tiniest wisps brush the page. The nectar glow shimmered, the petal page brightened, the scribe's eyebrows rose in slow, delighted surprise. "Oh, a moment of stillness! How beautiful! I shall record it." It wrote slowly, and then the cloud paused, not out of worry, but out of wonder. The blossom trembled gently, pleased. "Do you know why Petal Town exists?" the scribe asked as it wrote. "Because softness needs somewhere to gather. Because gentle things are easily overlooked. Here they are allowed to be important." The cloud drifted in a slow circle, absorbing the warmth of the sunlight that wasn't sunlight and breathing in the petal scent that carried memories of gardens that never demanded names. "Would you like to meet the petals who dream?" the scribe asked suddenly, gesturing with its quill. The cloud hovered curiously. The scribe led it, by floating, which is its version of walking, to another blossom, this one larger and curved inward like a soft, glowing cave. Inside, the petals were closed, layered like blankets folded over each other. Somewhere deep within, tiny, faintly sparkling things fluttered. "These are dream petals," the scribe whispered. "They collect dreams that drift loose. Not big dreams, those belong to the sleeping minds. No, these collect little dreams, half-dreams, wishes that don't know they're wishes, imagined moments that slipped between thoughts." One of the petals shivered gently, and a tiny dream fluttered free like a spark of soft light. It floated up, circling the cloud in a slow, wobbling path, trailing. The cloud drifted away from Petal Town with the slow confidence of something that didn't know where it was going and didn't need to. Behind it, blossoms folded softly, sealing the gentle murmurs and quiet dream lights into their petals until the next wanderer arrived in need of rest. Ahead, the sky shifted again.
Not dramatically, not suddenly, just a soft turning, like a page deciding it is time to show its other side. The colors deepened, muted lavender sinking into dusty blue, golden haze fading into a faint, shimmering silver. The light grew calmer, as though wrapped in a blanket of dusk that never fully committed to night. As the cloud floated onward, it noticed something new appearing on the horizon. At first, it looked like a cluster of tall, thin shapes rising from the soft blur of distant air, shapes too structured to be flowers, too consistent to be hills, too quiet to be trees. With each drift forward, they sharpened into view. Tall shelves. Impossible shelves. Shelves that rose from the sky itself, as if the sky had once tried to organize its thoughts, but became distracted halfway through. The shelves were made of something that looked like wood, but wasn't. They were made of something that looked like stone, but wasn't that either. They were made of something remnant. That was the best word. Remnant of memory, remnant of dream, remnant of stories that did not want to grow up into full stories. This was the library of unfinished dreams. The cloud floated closer. The shelves had no walls, no floors, no ceilings. They simply hovered, anchored only by the certainty that they had a reason to remain exactly where they were. Some shelves curled upward in spirals. Others branched out sideways in whimsical forks. Others looped into circles that connected back with themselves. And on the shelves, books, scrolls, papers, loose dreams folded like napkins, faint glowing thought fragments drifting in jars, half-written sentences curled in little glass bottles, dreams that had been forgotten, dreams that had wandered too far, dreams that someone had once imagined, then paused, then never resumed, dreams that had timidly begun and grown shy, dreams that were waiting or resting or pretending to rest. The cloud drifted near the closest shelf, where a small book lay open. The book had no binding, just pages held together by a promise of being read someday. The top of the page read, Chapter 1, The Beginning of the Softest Storm. Below that, nothing, only an unfinished sentence. The first raindrop hesitated because, and then the page was blank. The cloud drifted a little closer, as if trying to hear what the sentence might have become if given more time. Because why? Because the raindrop was shy? Because the raindrop wanted to be snow instead? Because it wasn't sure if the world was ready to be rained on gently? Or because the raindrop had forgotten what falling felt like? The book didn't say, the cloud didn't mind. Unfinished stories had their own charm. They didn't need endings to be comforting. The cloud wandered to another shelf where a scroll unrolled itself politely as it approached. The scroll was made of something like soft parchment, but whenever the cloud drifted too close, the material rippled like liquid and re-solidified the moment the cloud pulled away. The scroll read, The dream began in a room without corners, and in the center of that room stood another pause, a beautifully unfinished moment. Something stood there, someone. Or maybe it was merely a feeling that had considered turning into a person and then changed its mind. The cloud drifted on. With each shelf it passed, new unfinished pieces whispered softly, like little fragments calling out to be gently noticed, not solved. From a tiny booklet the size of a sugar cube, and then the moon leaned in as if to whisper. From a broad sheet of folded dream paper, the creature opened its eyes, but could not remember. From a jar filled with swirling stardust, at the edge of the world the last feather fell because none of them finished their thoughts. None of them needed to. Farther in, the cloud discovered an entire section of shelves filled with dreams shaped more like objects than words. Small glowing marbles that pulsed softly when approached. Fragments of melodies humming inside crystalline shards. Tiny folded stars that twinkled faintly when touched by drifting wind. One star unfolded itself as the cloud passed and whispered in a tiny voice, "I was supposed to become something bigger. I was supposed to shine more brightly, but I got sleepy. I hope that's all right." The cloud gently brushed it with a wisp. The little star trembled with relief. "Oh, good," it sighed. "No one ever told me I had to finish becoming anything." Nearby, a group of dream fragments floated together in a cluster. They looked like warm motes of light, the kind that dance in sunbeams. They drifted closer to the cloud, circling it cheerfully, as if welcoming it into their incomplete constellation. One fragment whispered, "I once dreamed of flying." Another whispered, "I once dreamed of swimming." A third whispered, "I dreamed of being someone else's dream." The cloud drifted among them like a quiet guest at a very gentle gathering. Deeper still in the library, the shelves grew taller, so tall that the cloud could not see where they ended. They stretched upward like towers of memory, reaching into sky that shimmered with soft violet hues. At the base of such a towering shelf sat a librarian. At least it looked like a librarian. It was shaped like a tall, elegant stack of folded paper, pleasantly geometric, with little ink-like markings that resembled facial features. Its eyes were two soft dots of ink, its mouth a thin, curved line that looked perpetually on the verge of a yawn. When it noticed the cloud, it dipped slightly, like a bow performed slowly to avoid disturbing dust that wasn't even there. "Welcome," it said, its voice the sound of pages turning in a quiet room. "You are here to retrieve a dream, return one, or simply float." The cloud drifted politely. "I see," the librarian said, nodding sagely as if the cloud had given a long explanation. "Floating is a perfectly respectable activity." It gestured, using what might have been an arm, though it looked more like folded origami, toward the nearest shelves. "These," it said, "are the dreams that never knew if they wanted to be dreams. They wandered in one day, uninvited but not unwelcome. We let them rest until they choose." The cloud drifted along the shelf's length. A jar shaped like a droplet hummed. The humming rose and fell like someone half asleep. Inside the jar, a dream curled softly, glowing faintly. "That one," said the librarian in a whisper, dreamed of being a ripple on a pond, but it grew tired before imagining the splash, so it came here to rest. The cloud drifted on. Another shelf held sentences preserved like delicate specimens. He reached the door, and she stood beneath the tree.
The cloud drifted away from the library of unfinished dreams at a pace so slow it felt like a sigh stretched across the horizon. Behind it, the shelves hummed their drowsy chorus of incomplete truths, their half-sentences curling into the air like petals stirred by memory. Ahead, a warm shimmer pulsed in the dimming sky. At first, it looked like the soft glow of fireflies. Then, the cloud drifted closer and the lights grew larger, rounder, more deliberate, though still timid. Lanterns. Dozens of lanterns. Hundreds, perhaps, though counting them felt impossible. They floated at different heights, bobbing gently like buoys on a dream ocean, their shapes round and plump and friendly. Each one hung on a thin thread of light, dangling from the air itself as though the sky had grown handles. They flickered, weakly, shyly, like someone trying to remember how to smile. This was the home of the lanterns who forgot their glow. As the cloud approached, several nearby lanterns dimmed nervously, as if not sure whether they were supposed to shine brighter when visitors arrived. "Is someone there?" whispered one lantern, its flicker shrinking into a tiny, wobbly dot. "I think someone is there," answered another, its glow expanding a fraction before dimming again. "Or maybe it's a memory of someone." "It's soft," said a third. "Memories are rarely this fluffy." The cloud drifted among them gently. The lanterns bobbed away, startled, then bobbed right back, intrigued. "Oh!" squealed a tiny lantern shaped like a teardrop. "It's a cloud! A real cloud! Imagine forgetting you're supposed to glow and then seeing something so soft float by." The cloud wasn't sure whether it was being complimented or observed, but either way, it hovered politely. A larger lantern drifted closer. It looked older, not by age, but by posture. Its glow pulsed like a heartbeat that had forgotten the rhythm but remembered the intention. "Hello," it said, in a voice like warm candlelight. "Forgive our dimness. We're still working on remembering how to glow." It floated in a slow circle around the cloud, examining it carefully. "You are very undefined," it observed kindly. "That's excellent. Everything defined forgets how to drift." The cloud accepted the compliment. "Would you like us to show you how we glow?" asked a lantern so pale it looked transparent, although we might forget halfway through. "That's the exciting part," whispered another lantern, barely audible. "The forgetting. It makes the glowing more interesting." A cluster of lanterns gathered around, nudging each other softly. "Should we try?" asked one. "We should try," said another. "We will forget how," said a third. "But that's fine. Forgetting is how we begin again." And with that, the lanterns prepared themselves. Each lantern inhaled, not with lungs but with intent, pulling in the faint shimmer of the air around them. They expanded slightly. They brightened a little. Some wobbled. One spun in a tiny, confused circle. Another let out a soft puff of sparkles. "It's happening," whispered a lantern shaped like a small pumpkin. "No, it's beginning to happen," corrected another politely. "No, it's remembering happening," said a third. The cloud hovered, captivated. Slowly, beautifully, the lanterns glowed together. Not brightly, not fully, but enough. A dim, warm hum filled the air, wrapping around the cloud like a cozy blanket. The lantern's light bathed the path, revealing gentle currents of air drifting through like slow rivers. The lanterns began to hum. Not a tune, not a melody, just a rhythmic, gentle vibration. One note shared by many, rising and falling like soft breathing. It was the hum of remembering, or the hum of forgetting, perhaps both. The cloud drifted into the center of their circle. The lanterns brightened in excitement, then dimmed because they had forgotten they were supposed to maintain the brightness. Then brightened again, then dimmed. "It's fine," murmured the elder lantern. "The glow returns as it pleases." The lanterns hummed louder, and something remarkable happened. Light gathered beneath them. Not light from the lanterns themselves, but light from the air, from memory, from warm thoughts that had drifted loose and were looking for somewhere to land. The lanterns were not glowing. The world was glowing through them. The cloud drifted into that light, letting it pass through its soft body. It felt warm, not hot, and comforting in a way that made its center loosen, as if something inside it had been exhaling for a long time and finally reached the end of the breath. A tiny lantern floated up to the cloud. It flickered shyly. "I once glowed very brightly, so brightly I thought I would burst, but then I stopped, and I couldn't start again." The cloud hovered close. The lantern bobbed, encouraged. "But I realized something," it continued softly. "I didn't need to glow all the time. Sometimes not glowing is resting, and resting is glowing in its own way." The cloud's edges softened, absorbing the truth quietly. Another lantern approached, this one a bit wobbly and lopsided. "I forgot my glow," it said proudly. "I forgot it so thoroughly that I became excellent at forgetting. Now, whenever I do glow, even a little, it feels like a celebration." The cloud drifted in a small circle, admiring the lanterns. Some glowed faintly, like memories. Others glowed in short bursts, like surprised laughter. Some glowed only at the very bottom, like the last ember of a cozy fire. A few glowed brightly for a moment, then flickered out completely, satisfied. The cloud realized something. Glow did not need to be steady to be meaningful. Brightness did not need to be constant to be beautiful. Light did not need to be remembered to be felt. As the lanterns hummed, a breeze moved through the space, the same breeze that had guided the cloud from the teacup alley to Petal Town to the library, and now here. The lanterns swayed in unison, following the breeze's gentle rhythm. "It's time," whispered the elder lantern. "Time to do what?" asked the tiny lantern. "To let the cloud drift onward," the elder replied softly. "The path continues. It curves. It folds. It waits." The lanterns dimmed respectfully, not out of sadness, but out of a quiet joy that the cloud had witnessed their shy glow. "Before you go," said the elder lantern, floating close to the cloud's center, "take this truth with you. Even forgotten light is still light. Even dimness warms." The cloud felt this settle inside it like the memory of warmth on a cold day. The breeze tugged softly. The lanterns bobbed farewell, flickering brightly, or dimly, or blinking in confused patterns, but always sincerely. The cloud drifted upward, leaving behind the lanterns who forgot their glow, their little hum following it like a soft goodnight. Ahead,
The cloud floated onward, guided once again by the gentle breeze that seemed to know exactly when and where softness was needed. The glow of the lanterns slowly faded behind it, until they became nothing more than tiny sparks flickering in the distance, like memories winking good night. Ahead, the sky shifted again, subtly, quietly, as if preparing itself for a new rhythm. The air grew cooler, carrying with it the faintest sound. It was not wind, not leaves, not rain. It was something older, gentler, tidal. The cloud drifted toward the sound, feeling the rhythm before it could see it. As it descended, a pale silver shoreline came into view, a place where sky met water not in a sharp horizon, but in a slow gradient, as if the two had decided long ago to blend rather than meet. This was the shoreline of endless echoes. It wasn't made of sand or pebble or stone. The ground rippled softly, like liquid made solid or solid made liquid. Tiny glowing specks drifted along the surface, rising and falling like the breath of a sleeping world. And beyond it, spreading far into the quiet distance, rolled gentle waves. If they could even be called waves, they rose and sank with elegant slowness, each crest dissolving without a splash into soft mist before forming again. Every wave carried a sound. And after each sound came a second. Exactly the same, but quieter, softer, a little delayed. An echo. But not an echo from the land or the air or anything the cloud could see. These were echoes that seemed to echo themselves, mirrors of sound chasing their own tails. The cloud drifted low, hovering just above the shimmering shoreline. Immediately, a new echo rose, a faint,
that sounded almost like the cloud drifting, followed moments later by a softer whoosh, and then a whisper-soft. The cloud blinked, or did the cloud equivalent of blinking? Was it hearing itself? Was the shoreline echoing cloudness back to it? A nearby wave rose slightly higher, its crest forming a delicate curl, and emitted a sound that closely resembled oof, followed by an even softer version, oof, and again, a breath later, oof. It was trying to mimic the cloud's drifting hum. The cloud drifted closer, curious. As it did, a section of the shimmering shoreline stirred inward. The surface rippled inward, forming a small mound shaped vaguely like a shell. The shell shook off a thin veil of mist and opened, revealing a tiny glowing creature inside. It resembled a pearl, if pearls had tiny arms and legs and eyes that sparkled like reflections of starlight in shallow water. The creature yawned lazily. Its yawn made 3 soft echoes in rapid succession. Yawn, yawn, yawn. Oh, it said, noticing the cloud hovering above. Oh, oh. Each exclamation arrived softer than the one before. "You're new," said the pearl creature, voice gentle and round. "I haven't seen a drifting fluff here in, It blinked slowly, clearly trying to remember. "In a very long, long." It never finished the sentence. The cloud, amused, drifted a little lower. "We're echo keepers," the pearl creature explained, hopping onto a small bobbing wave. "We look after the sounds that return, and the sounds that try to return, and the sounds that forget where they came from and come back anyway." It lifted its tiny arms dramatically. "Listen!" The cloud listened. A wave rose. Shh. Another behind it. Shh. And then a distant, lower version. Shh. The pearl creature beamed. It said, "That was a triple," proudly. "We do doubles, triples, and sometimes, if the tide feels playful, quintuple echoes, but only on weekends." A larger wave shifted, slowly, deliberately, and spoke in a deep, watery voice. "Wave." The echo that followed was a faint "ave," and finally a tiny "ave." The pearl creature clapped its tiny hands. It said, "It's been practicing." He used to only manage "wah." It was very embarrassing. The cloud drifted gently over the surface, noticing how its presence created ripples that the shoreline eagerly mimicked in miniature. Every time the cloud swelled even a little, a small wave puffed itself up in imitation. The cloud found this adorable. The pearl creature hopped to a new wave and motioned dramatically at the horizon. It said, "You can say anything here, and the world will say it back. But softer, always softer, never louder, never harsher, always comforting." The cloud drifted thoughtfully. It didn't speak, but it exhaled a tiny wisp, a little soft A nearby wave perked up. Three echoes, each one smaller than the last. The cloud felt something like delight ripple through it. "It likes you," the pearl creature giggled. "Some visitors get no echoes at all. They're too sharp, too loud, too defined. But you," its eyes sparkled, "you're perfect for this place." It hopped closer and whispered conspiratorially, "Would you like to hear the old echo?" The cloud drifted downward, curious. The pearl creature nodded solemnly. "It only happens once in a while," it said, "when someone very soft comes through." It cupped its tiny hands around its tiny mouth and called, "Hello." The echo returned. "Hello, hello, hello, low." Oh, the final O was nothing more than a
The cloud drifted away from the echoing shoreline, its form softened by the gentle repetitions it had absorbed. The world behind it murmured in fading echoes, "Shh. Oh." Each one dissolving into quieter and quieter versions of itself until there was nothing left but silence. Ahead, everything dimmed. Not in a frightening way, not like darkness closing in, more like a room with thick curtains drawn, cozy, hushed, and safe. A vast expanse of velvet black air stretched before the cloud. No horizon, no ground, no moon, no stars, nothing. And yet, not nothing. The cloud drifted gently out of the soft, velvet darkness of the not night, leaving behind the maybe stars, the former stars, and the not stars humming their delicate constellations. As the darkness thinned into a quiet mist, the shapes ahead sharpened, slowly, as though they were shy about being seen all at once. Tall silhouettes rose from the haze, not rigid, not straight, not like any trees the cloud had seen from above. These trees bent, not downward, not upward, but inward, coiling around their own trunks like thoughtful spirals. Some tilted curiously, some curved gracefully, some swayed even when no wind moved. Their branches twisted into loops that made no practical sense and didn't care. This was the Dreamwood Forest. The cloud drifted in, expecting the hush of ordinary woodlands, but Dreamwood didn't hush. It murmured. A low chorus filled the space, not words, not melody, a kind of collective, gentle rambling, like dozens of old storytellers all talking to themselves softly and never expecting to be understood. The cloud hovered closer to one tree and heard it mumbling, "And then I thought perhaps I could grow a branch in that direction, but then I forgot what that direction meant, so I stayed here instead," which wasn't so bad because the sunlight was quite polite that day. The tree's leaves shivered with pleasure at its own recollection. Another tree, slightly smaller and bent like a bow, murmured, "Dreamt I had bark made of feathers once, softer, lighter. But then I sneezed. Trees do sneeze, you know, and the dream fell off." A third, with roots looping over themselves like a curled nap, whispered, "Don't remember how many rings I have. I stopped counting after 40-something, or maybe 14, or maybe 4. Numbers get tired too." The cloud drifted deeper into the forest, feeling the murmurs brushing against it like warm breaths. A cluster of saplings noticed the cloud and rustled excitedly. Their voices were high and soft, like tiny bells wrapped in wool. "Look," squealed the first sapling. "No, a fluffer," corrected another. "No, a drifter," insisted a third. They all leaned toward the cloud, branches creaking adorably. "What does it want?" whispered one. "What does it dream?" wondered another. "Maybe it doesn't dream. Maybe it is a dream," gasped the smallest sapling, scandalized by its own theory. The cloud drifted around them slowly, which made the saplings cheer in tiny rustles. "Movement," said one. "Graceful movement. Unbothered movement. I want to move like that someday," sighed another, attempting to wiggle only to fall over, roots tangled. Its siblings helped it upright. The cloud felt very appreciated. A deeper voice rumbled from somewhere ahead, the kind of voice that sounded like bark thickening and roots remembering and leaves deciding whether to unfurl. The cloud drifted toward it. There, in the center of the forest, stood the tallest tree. It twisted in a long spiral, its trunk looping upward like a ribbon of wood drawn slowly through the sky. Its branches spread out in curved arches, forming a canopy shaped like a gentle swirl of thought. This was the spiral elder, the oldest dream tree, the one who remembered the forest's dreams even when the forest forgot them. The elder's bark glowed faintly, as though lit from within by old stories. As the cloud approached, the elder exhaled a long, slow breath that rustled every leaf in Dreamwood. "Ah," it sighed, "a visitor of softness."
Its voice was low, warm, and shaped like a yawn stretched into a sentence. The cloud floated closer, curious and attentive. The elder's branches curled downward to greet it. "You have drifted far," it murmured. "You smell of petals and echoes and unfinished dreams. A journey of softness, a journey of gathering. This is good." The cloud absorbed this quietly. The elder continued, "This forest grows from dreams that have wandered too long in someone's mind. When a dream takes a wrong turn, or becomes too strange, or forgets itself halfway through, it sprouts here as a tree." A low creaking sound rippled through the trunks, the dreamwood agreeing proudly. The elder's bark brightened as it spoke. "Some dreams grow tall, some stay as saplings forever. Some become knotted and tangled, some split, some bloom. All are welcome." The cloud drifted near a wide root that resembled a sleeping creature curled around the tree's base. The elder chuckled softly. "That root," he explained, "is a dream someone had about napping. The dream decided to nap too. It has been asleep for a century, perhaps two, but who's counting?" From above, a branch murmured, "Still dreaming of the nap. Good nap, long nap." The cloud brushed against it gently. The branch brightened in delight. The elder leaned closer. "Would you like to hear your dream tree?" it asked. The cloud paused. Its wisps curled with soft uncertainty. "My dream tree?" the cloud thought. The elder nodded. "Every wanderer who drifts through dreamwood leaves behind a dream, sometimes small, sometimes strange, sometimes forgotten before it is even dreamed." It gestured with a long, spiraling branch. "Yours is over there, child of softness." The cloud floated toward the tree indicated. It was small, barely taller than the saplings, with leaves shaped like wisps and branches that curled inward shyly. It trembled gently when the cloud approached, as if embarrassed. The elder spoke softly. "This tree grew from a dream you once had, a dream without words, a dream of drifting without worry, of resting without reason, of floating simply because floating is quiet." The cloud's center warmed. It did not remember the dream, but the tree remembered, and that was enough. "Its leaves hum at night," said the elder fondly, "a sound like your own breath." The cloud drifted around its dream tree, feeling a strange calm ripple through its body. The dream tree whispered in a soft rustle, "Float with me, float forever. No need to know why." The cloud brushed against it lightly. The dream tree shimmered. "You have fed it well," said the elder. "Soft things feed soft dreams." The forest murmured in agreement. A tree with spiral leaves said, "We like visitors who don't stump." Another with curled branches whispered, "Or hurry." A tall one, thin one added, "Or demand explanations." The elder turned toward the cloud again. "This forest offers you 3 gifts," it said, "as it offers all wanderers who drift gently." Its branches extended, slowly, reverently. "The first gift is rest without sleep. You may drift here and feel restored without needing to dream." The cloud felt softness settle around it. "The second gift," continued the elder, "is memory without detail. You may forget and remember at the same time. Dreamwood will hold the parts you drop." The cloud drifted lower, absorbing the truth the way clouds absorb early morning light. And the third gift, the elder's voice dropped to a whisper, so faint the leaves leaned in to hear, is departure without loss. When you leave, your dream tree remains. Part of you stays, rooted in softness. Part of you moves on. Both parts are true. The cloud hovered, deeply comforted. Around it, the dreamwood murmured its approval, a chorus of rustles, creaks, sighs, and the soft sound of bark remembering something pleasant. The breeze arrived, gentle, patient, touching the cloud's edges. The elder nodded. It is time for you to drift onward, toward the winding meadow.
The cloud drifted out of Dreamwood with the elder's whisper still humming through its softness. Beneath it, the murmuring trees slowly faded, their spirals blending into the mist until the forest became nothing more than a memory traced in lingering warmth. Ahead, the world brightened. Not sharply, not suddenly, but like a blanket pulled back just enough to let morning peek in. A soft golden glow stretched across the sky. It wasn't sunlight. It wasn't lantern light. It wasn't anything the cloud had encountered before. It was warm like laughter. It was gentle like sighing. It pulsed like the hush of someone smiling with their eyes closed. The cloud drifted toward it.
The cloud drifted away from the field of softly laughing shadows, still feeling the echoes of gentle giggles resting inside its softness. The meadow's golden glow faded behind it until the laughing shadows became nothing more than a pleasant impression, like the memory of smiling with eyes half closed. Ahead, the sky changed once more. It did not darken. It did not brighten. It filled. The air ahead grew dense with something unseen, like mist, but not made of water, like sound, but not made of noise, like language, but without firm meaning. The cloud inched forward. At first, it heard nothing more than a faint murmur, like someone whispering under their breath, in a language the cloud didn't speak. Then, as it drifted closer, the murmur split into syllables, into sounds, into fragments of words. Al, Mar, Lee, Sir, Joe, N. Little pieces of names. They floated through the air like dandelion seeds, half-formed, gently spinning, looking for a place to land. This was the air of forgotten names. The space ahead shimmered with drifting shapes, curved strokes, loops, dots, tiny marks, like writing that had been erased only halfway. Letters flickered, rearranged themselves, blurred into curls and lines. The cloud drifted cautiously into it. Immediately, names brushed against its surface. Not whole names, just small pieces. L, Ien, me, ka. They clung to its wisps for a moment, curious, then drifted off again. Some repeated themselves as they floated by. Others bumped into each other and formed accidental combinations. R, me, ill, Joe, Ann, Lee, Sir, me, ta. None stayed together for long. None insisted on being one thing. A small swirl of letters spun up directly in front of the cloud. It wobbled, stuttered, and then arranged itself into something like H-E-L-O. The cloud watched, amused. The swirl tried again. H-A-L-O. Then H-O-L-A. Then H-E-L-L-O. Satisfied, it fizzled and drifted apart, the letters scattering like polite confetti. From somewhere nearby, a voice spoke, soft, airy, and overlapping itself slightly, as if used to being interrupted by breezes. Don't mind them. They're trying things out. The cloud turned, or the cloud equivalent of turning. Drifting toward it was a figure made entirely of thin, swirling lines, like handwriting that had wandered off the page. Strokes looped around each other gently, forming the hint of a head, a body, hands that trailed off into curving spirals. Its face was a simple curve of ink shaped into a smile. I am the name keeper, though I don't remember which name that is from. It laughed quietly, a breath of sound, like paper being folded gently. The cloud drifted closer. The namekeeper explained, "The names you see here are names that have been dropped. Once someone carried them in their mind, in their mouth, in their heart. But time is clumsy, and people forget, and names slip loose." A cluster of syllables floated past, humming softly. Sa, Ra, Li, Da, Mi, Ra, O, Na. They circled the cloud, curious, then drifted upward. The namekeeper continued, "We keep them here, in case someone needs them again, or in case they want to be something else." He gestured at a glowing coil of letters. "Look at that one. It used to be a name for a ship. Then the ship sank, and no one spoke its name anymore. Now it's thinking of becoming the name of a story instead." The letters unwound themselves and rewound themselves, trying out different combinations, never quite settling and never needing to. Farther ahead, the air thickened with name fragments. The cloud drifted gently through them, feeling each one brush against it like the lightest touch of a fingertip. Some felt sharp, some soft, some heavy with history, some feather light with youth. One tiny syllable, Lu, landed on the cloud's edge and stayed. The cloud waited. The syllable shivered. Then it giggled and bounced away, joining a cluster of other syllables experimenting with being Lu-me-na, or Ludo, or Lura. The namekeeper followed leisurely, trailing lines of ink behind like a drawn-out thought. "I imagine," it said, "you have trouble with names." It sounded kind, not accusing. The cloud thought of the moment, long ago, or perhaps just earlier today, when it had tried to remember its own name and found only softness and blankness and the sense of something that didn't need to be found. The namekeeper nodded knowingly. "Yes, I can feel it in your shape. You had a name once. It left you gently. You did not chase it. That is rare." A cluster of letters floated toward them, spelling, briefly, shakily, something like Nimbus. They hovered, uncertain. The namekeeper watched them with amusement. "Ah," it said, "a popular one. It's been many clouds. It's been reused quite a bit." The letters shook themselves, rearranged, became Numbis, then Submin, then Busmin. Unsatisfied, they fell apart, and drifted away. The cloud observed calmly. "You could take one," the namekeeper offered casually. "A name, I mean. Many wanderers do. They try a name on for a while, like a scarf, or a hat, or a favorite word. You could pick a piece of sound, wear it gently, and forget it when you're done." The cloud considered. In response, the air around them stirred, gathering letters like leaves. SOFTONE HOVERLY.
The cloud drifted into the open sky beyond the air of forgotten names, leaving behind the drifting syllables and the namekeeper's swirling ink lines.